everybody. Welcome to finally another episode of the Chore of Duty. I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
That's Chris sitting next to me, riding shotgun on the Maniacal Express. Okay, now, 3 weeks ago, we did an episode of Geeking Out, the other show we do. That was the pop culture show. This is the political show, okay? And I promised then that I was going to be talking about a topic that, quite frankly, probably needs to be talked about. Where the hell do Christians go? Okay. Now, Chris, on Geeking Out, Chris kind of helps. It's kind of like 50-50, the labor over there. Chris comes up with all the stuff that's going on. He throws it at my head, and I either knock it back or catch it in the ear or something. But over here on the Chore of Duty, I tend to do most of the talking. But Chris is not a Christian, okay?
I'm not.
Are you?
I don't know.
Do you go to church? Do you go to church?
No.
Okay. Do you pray on a regular basis?
No.
Is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so you're a Christian. You're just not a church-going Christian. You don't tell me these things. Anyway, this episode. And Joe Rogan has nothing to worry about from this corner of the internet. Anyway, okay. So anyway, Chris is a Christian, but we'll say he's not a card-carrying, church-going Christian.
I'm a weird one.
He's a part-time Christian. Actually, that's what this message is aimed for. It's not necessarily for you, okay?
Okay.
And for those of you who are not Christians, if you have not been born again, if you have not been saved, if you're another religion, if you're a humanist, if you're an atheist, lay back. You don't have to drop out, okay? Don't hang up or anything yet. Showing my age there. Don't drop out or anything. It's just this is not addressed to you. I'm addressing this to my fellow Christians. And this is y'all gotta understand. I'm gonna go into some background here. I was born again about 3 years ago, pretty much officially. I became a member of the Gateway Christian Church here in Mount Sterling, Kentucky 3 years ago. And I've kind of been kicking back, laying low, and trying to learn as much as I can from the inside. I have learned Christian theology for off and on for decades now. It kind of goes hand in hand with being a semi-conservative type of political guy, okay? And as an outsider coming into Christianity, it's different than if you're raised as a Christian, if you're raised in the church, okay? Being baptized into this, and I was baptized, and there are Christians who don't believe in baptisms, which is fine. It has nothing to do with this topic. After being baptized, I'm pretty much consider myself committed to the cause. I've been listening. I've been learning. I've heard from the outside. I still hear from the outside. I still hear from the inside now, which is a little bit different. I haven't always been able to hear as much from inside the churches as I have from people on the outside looking in. I have a message for all my fellow Christians that you really need to hear, and it comes from all the people outside. Where the hell are you? Okay, this is not a joke. This is not a punchline. Where are all the Christians? Where did you guys go? Okay, we are now at the point. This is not a joke either. I'm honestly hearing this from people. Okay, and I'm hearing it on podcasts, I'm hearing it on television, I'm seeing it in print, I'm reading it online. I've got people coming up to me out of nowhere, just bringing it up. The Christians are nowhere to be found, okay? Recently there was, I heard a podcast where basically it was a guy who's in the same boat as me, used to be secular, became Christian, and he's wondering, why aren't Christians standing up to these people? I mean, we've got, for all the criticism and all the critiques of woke culture, of sexists who claim they're against sexism, of racists who are against racism, who say they're against racism, of alleged trans activists who are actually transphobic, or worse, even heterophobic. All these people who are committing evil in what they think are good acts because they don't know the difference between good and evil. Let me explain some basic concepts here. I need to define a few things. Humanists, there are atheists, there are believers, okay? Basically religious people. Religious people split into types of religion. You got Jews, you got Christians, you got Muslims, you have Hindus, and a bunch of others. Humanists believe that human beings are at heart good. That human beings are good and they will do good things because it's innate in them. Okay? Atheists believe that there is no such thing as a God and that this is all there is, and when you die, that's it. Okay? So you need to do everything possible to perpetuate your life. When it comes to religion, especially Judaism, Christianity, and to a lesser extent Islam, the idea that this is the end of it and this is all there is, for one thing, it continues past this. Death is just like you were born, and that changes the way you're living your life. When you die, it just changes the way you're living your life. Your life continues from before you were born and after you die, because this is just the physical plane part of it. This is the world that the Lord created, and you're just spending part of your time passing through it. The other thing that, and this is what separates Jews and Christians from almost every other religion on earth, Jews and Christians are taught from the beginning that people are bad. People are inherently bad. When they say we're all born sinners, that's what they mean. We all have bad in our heart, because good means, essentially, if you boil it down, taking care of the other guy before you take care of yourself. Okay? It's the golden rule. Treat your neighbor the way you would want to be treated. So if your neighbor's having trouble, you go help your neighbor. This is what all of Western philosophy is built upon. If your neighbor needs help, you go help your neighbor. Humanism basically says, we don't need to tell you that. You should know innately that you should go help your neighbor because it's the right thing to do. An atheist is going to say, well, screw my neighbor. I need to take care of myself. That's what's important, because I need to perpetuate myself. That's the difference between secular humanism and atheism, is this kind of almost an egocentrical, self-centered point of view. With Christianity, okay, especially with Christianity in America, America would not have gotten this far without the providence of God. All right. I mean, let's face, some of the decisions we've made in this country have been pretty stinky. Okay. Look at what happened in the Vietnamese War. Look at what happened in Afghanistan. Look at what happened after 9/11. Look at what happened in Korea. Look at what happened after World War I. Look at what happened with Russia. Look at what happened with China. Look at what's happened in all these places. Look at what happened in the Middle East. All because a bunch of self-professed experts have a piece of paper that says they're smarter than the rest of us. They get in there, they make their decisions to make things worse, and there's no way in the world America should be able to dig itself out of these situations. It's God's providence that pulls us back from the edge. Okay? We're facing this again in 2022. Look around you. You've got empty shelves. We've never had empty shelves. Okay? The only time we get empty shelves is if there was a natural disaster bearing down and there was some kind of disruption to the network. Right now, nationally, the shelves are going bare. Okay? You're seeing isolated pockets where the shelves are full. That's not right. You're seeing inflation going out of control. Officially at 7%. Unofficially, from what I'm seeing, looking around, and I work in all kinds of retailers, It's closer to 14, 15, 16%. Okay? So and to be honest, you can always take an inflation number and double it and get closer to the real thing. Always. But you see all these things, God's the one who always pulls us back from the brink. And the reason God keeps doing that is because God established this country. And like I said, I'm speaking to my fellow Christians here. I'm not. So all you atheists and stuff, don't get your feathers in a ruffle. God established us here for a reason. We are here to help keep humanity from toddling closer to Armageddon than they need to. There is a time and a place for Armageddon. It's not here, it's not now. Okay? That's why God's providence established America where it is, when it was, and as it is, in order to get this far. What Christianity has done is essentially I actually traced this back to a Supreme Court decision early on that said, early in the 20th century, that said that took the idea that Congress cannot establish a state church and took that to mean that churches could not be involved in anything political. Now, add on top of that, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, are tax collectors, ironically, because tax collectors have special meaning for Christians. The IRS, the tax collectors of the IRS came up with this idea that if you started discussing politics at the pulpit, then you might lose your tax-exempt status, because right now churches don't pay taxes. So, it's supposed to be to encourage the establishment and growth of churches. So you've got this coming and going, and you've got a bunch of people now who are essentially afraid to say boo because they don't think they're allowed to. Okay? Okay, Christians, I want you to listen to me, and I honestly want you to think about this, okay? And I know there'll probably be only 2 or 3 of you, but if I can reach one person with this podcast, then at least that's something. It's starting a ball rolling. Okay? Who are you afraid of? Are you afraid of your government, or are you afraid of God? That's what it comes down to. Okay? If you're afraid of your government, you will not do what God wants you to do.
That's the problem. That's where they all are.
And that's where they all are. They're afraid of the government. Let's look at what has happened since COVID-19 became a thing. We still have people screaming you have to wear a mask everywhere. Masks don't work. We know that. Even now they're talking about N95 and KN95 masks. Those are good for single use. You can't reuse those. Oh, well, you can sit there and like steam clean them and stuff and sterilize them and you'll be able to use them again. No, you can't. Because when you try to clean one of those things, you damage the fibers and you destroy the efficacy of it. If you honestly want to protect yourself from COVID-19, you're going to have to wear a full hazmat suit with a self-contained breathing apparatus at all times. You must have your own sterilized oxygen supply. You can't completely avoid any risk at all. I know you want to, because humanity is hardwired to always focus on the rare risks. Nobody wants to be the guy who dies from like a black widow spider bite. So let's kill all the spiders. All right. Even though spiders, by and large, are beneficial for humanity, let's kill all the spiders. Nobody wants to be the one who dies from a bee sting. Okay. So let's kill all the bees. That makes sense. There's all kinds. I don't want to be the one kid died from a lawn dart, and so they banned the lawn dart.
Well, that's the way society has always been. It's
Right.
like 9/11 happens. All Muslim people are bad.
No, I'll take you. I'll do you one better. Okay, because this is the way humanity is hardwired. Again, remember, go back to it. Humanists think that men are born good. Jews and Christians believe that Judeo-Christians believe that men are born bad. You listen to, Now, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to posit this to you. After 9/11, some people knee-jerked and blamed all Muslims for it. The vast majority of people did not. Okay?
Yeah.
There were a few vocal ones who went out and said that, and those people were very quickly silenced because everybody else turned around and stared daggers at them, and that shut them down. Early example of wokeism, okay?
Yeah.
Political correctness has been around for a very long time. Uh, the problem is that it wasn't the Muslims that were the problem, okay? And it wasn't even the people who blamed the Muslims. It was the security theater we got after 9/11. People demanded that something be done. Show me you're doing something. And George W. Bush, and by golly, all his advisors and viziers and all the experts who have a piece of paper that say they're smarter than you, they all made sure that you saw exactly what they were doing, and it's called security theater. We got the Transportation Safety Administration after that. And the TSA, those are the guys who sit there and shove their fist up your grandmother's anus because she might be carrying a rocket launcher up there, okay? Everybody knows your grandmother's a terrorist, right? Because we can't say that a Muslim can be a terrorist. So we have to sexually assault grandmothers all over the country on a daily basis so that we can so that way if we have to do it to a Muslim, we can say, well, we've done it to all these other grandmothers and stuff, so it's totally random, right? Yeah. Security theater. COVID-19 is security theater. These so-called vaccines that are not vaccines, they're genetic therapies. They're genetic therapeutics. They actually change your genetic material using messenger RNA to overwrite your body's the RNA in your body's immune system, your white blood cells and such. Those don't work. They just don't work that well. I mean, if you have a bunch of comorbidities, a recent study showed that if the majority of people who died from COVID-19 had at least 6 comorbidities, okay? Now, we've discussed comorbidities on the show before where I've said, should I get the shot or not? The more comorbidities. If you have a cold, if you have the flu, if you have an immune suppression problem, if you're old, if you're fat, the fatter you are, and all this other stuff, the more comorbidities you have, the more vulnerable you are to this because you're already in a weakened state. For crying out loud, this alleged so-called vaccine actually shuts down your immune response for a week as it rewrites the coding in your immune system. So you're actually more vulnerable to COVID after you get the shot for a week. You get better, but you need to be careful that first week. And then when you get the second shot, you have to be careful after that. And then you get the boosters, you got to be careful after that. And that's why you keep seeing all these people who have these shots catching COVID, okay? Because you're dealing with the security theater. They want people to think they went out and scared the heck out of everybody, and now they have to sit there and put up the security theater in order to get them to calm back down and believe that it's getting better. But they don't want to give up the power they got from the security theater, so they have to keep perpetuating the image that there's a problem. How many World Trade Center towers have fallen since September 11th, Christopher?
No.
There you go. For that matter, how many towers have fallen in the United States courtesy of a plane crashing into it?
None.
None. We've had towers fall usually because they were being run by some corporation or some group that wasn't doing their job. But hey, security theater, that just the appearance that we're doing something is what they're going for. Yeah. That's something wicked, okay? Because meanwhile, while you're doing the security theater and you're doing terrible things to grandmothers, The guys who are actually bad are sneaking through the southern border, the northern border, the eastern border, the western border. They're sneaking in here and they're doing things like going to a synagogue in Texas and taking people hostage in order to get his psychotic sister out of prison because she went and did something psychotic. But hey, at least that grandmother's not going to be able to pull an Uzi out of her coochie or anything, right? That's the thinking that comes when the Christians stand down. Yeah, actually, I did have a point, remember. If Christians were paying attention, on the day after 9/11, they posit the idea of the TSA, the Christians would be like, no, why would we do that? Why do we need a transportation security agency? We don't need that. Well, we have marshals, federal marshals, armed federal marshals on every flight. So why do we need the Transportation Security Administration? We don't. You just want more power so you feel like a stud in bed because you're a secular humanist who thinks that you're doing the right thing because you think people are good. I think people are bad. If we go in and expect people to act badly, everybody will be on their guard. Because notice, one of those planes on 9/11 went down in a field because after the other plane's been taken over, everybody was on their guard, and the people of that flight refused to let the terrorists complete their mission. True, we lost everybody on that flight, and it's sad. But those people realized those terrorists are not going to let us live through this anyway because people are not inherently good. We saw that. It's time we start reminding everybody else that people are not necessarily good. There's another thing, too, that Christians and Jews have that humanists and secularists and atheists do not have. We have a God who emphasizes the importance of freedom. Okay? Liberty is a Judeo-Christian concept. Liberty does not exist in Islamic nations. It does not exist in Hindu nations. It does not exist in communist nations. It doesn't exist in atheistic nations, although I haven't seen any yet. Nor does it exist in a secular nation like ours is supposed to be now. Liberty does not exist. Look at the shenanigans that happened in 2020. I'm not saying the elections were fraudulent or anything. You can make your own decisions. Go do your research. Don't just listen to me. Don't take my word for it. Go look. Look at what happened in Arizona. Look at what happened in Pennsylvania. Look at what happened in Michigan. Look at what happened in Georgia. Look at what happened. There's about a half dozen states where, this is not a joke, hundreds of thousands of dead people voted. How? Okay? Hundreds of thousands of people in nursing homes who are incapable of even recognizing their own children are voting. And they all vote straight Democrat. Okay? When you're not holding people to standards, they stop living up to standards. They wanted you. The secularists wanted Christians to shut up and go away because as long as the Christians were there and were raising questions and were fighting back and saying this is not right, the secularists couldn't get away with what they wanted to do. The humanists couldn't get away with treating unborn babies like meat. Okay? You've got people in this country who honestly harvest unborn babies as spare parts. That's not a joke either. I don't joke on this show. Okay? That happened. That Project Veritas has proven that. Okay? Planned Parenthood was responsible for that. We do trillions of dollars of business with China. They take adults and harvest organs from them.
Oh, can I say something real quick?
Yes,
Off
please
topic?
do. Go.
Okay, I just want to point out. You know how doctors come on and they'll sit there and they'll spit out a bunch of lies to get you to do something that you don't want to do? I just want to point this out. There was a guy who had to have a transplant, a heart transplant, and they put in a pig heart.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the most successful thing in medical history of, however long. The two doctors that was in charge of it was asked about, like, is this going to revolutionary everything and so on. You know what their response was? It was like, hold on. It's too soon to, like, yeah, it was a success, but we still got weeks, months, and stuff like that to go to before we call it a huge success. That's the truth. That's the first time I ever heard doctors actually be truthful about something. Or anybody who's ever stepped in front of a camera that was like, oh, no, hold on. Let's not
Yeah.
toot our horns just yet.
Standards.
There's issues that we're going to go through.
That-
So I just want to point that out. It was like, good job, doctors. On both.
It's called honesty.
Yes.
And why would they be honest about that? Okay? Now think about it this way. If they were just go ahead and say, well, it's a success, we're really excited about this, how many hundreds of thousands of heart patients would be beating down their door to get pig hearts?
Yeah.
Especially pig hearts. The reason, there's a reason why.
Sorry, I had to put that in there.
No.
I just thought it was like.
This is actually a related tangent on this. Genetically, pigs are dangerously close to human beings. Far closer genetically than you would really be comfortable with if you knew how close it was.
Yeah.
And that's why something like that might work. The doctors here are being honest about it because if they were dishonest about it and say, hey, it works, come on, we'll do the same thing for you, they could be millionaires very, very quickly. They would get all this prestige, they would get probably all these prizes awarded to them, people would want them to give speeches and give them insane amounts of money to do so and teach other people how to do it. But instead they say, wait a minute, we have to wait and see how this turns out because we don't want to get your hopes up because we care about our neighbors.
Exactly. That's why I was just so proud of them. I was like, because they could have went that easy route of just like being money. Bring me the money. We can do this.
Right.
Instead they were like, we actually care.
Which is the secular way of doing
like
it. That's the secular way of doing it because they say people are good. This will turn out well. Oh, maybe it won't turn out well. Okay. Well, and we don't. And maybe it will. And I hope it does because then
it will change a whole lot.
That would change a lot of things, okay? Because suddenly heart disease, it's not going to be still not an easy issue to do, but it'd be a lot easier to find pig hearts than to find human heart donors. Because you can't just donate your heart and then go back to work the next day, okay? The point I'm trying to make is that as Christians, we have an obligation to God and to our fellow man, especially our non-believers out there, our brothers and sisters who don't believe. Liberty requires that kind of mindset of taking care of your neighbors. This is something that gets lost in secularism, it gets lost in humanism. It gets especially lost in atheism where they become really self-centered. There are very few altruistic atheists out there. For a Christian, in order to fulfill their obligation that Christ gave them, okay, for Christians. For Jews, it's what Yahweh charged them with. Either way you look at it, it is our obligation as Christians to stop standing on the sidelines. Stop cowering in your mega churches. Stop suckling at the teat of wealth theology, okay? Stop falling for this idea that because you believe you're going to get rewarded for it. You don't do this for the reward. You do it because it's the right thing to do, because Jesus would do the right thing. Jesus didn't sit there and hide in his church and welcome the money handlers, the money changers, and the people who sold doves for 5 times the going price. He didn't do that. Okay, so why are you doing that? All right, take a look around. Look at the Joel Osteens of the world, the guys who run the mega churches right now. The one where they have thousands and thousands of so-called Christians going to that church. And he's got so much money, it's literally hiding in the walls of his church. Okay, that story came out a couple of weeks ago. Look at the Bishop T.D. Jakes, right, who I've been cussing now for even before I converted, because he was going around talking about the importance of tithing and telling people God don't do net. Okay? First off, tithing is a Jewish thing, and Christ says your own heart will tell you how much to render to the church. Although tithing 10% is generally the guideline most people still fall back upon just to make sure. But it's one of those things where if we've got a bunch of bad seed, got a bunch of bad apples in the batch right now. And they're running around and they can spoil everything. We need to get rid of those bad apples. Okay, there's still time to save this. Okay, there's still time to pull this out. But we have to stop hiding. We have to stop cowering. The truth is, where the hell did the Christians go? The Christians are still there. They just won't admit it. Stop cowering in your church. Stop thinking Christianity stops at the church door. Even if you don't want to go around and proselytize to everybody up and down the street, you don't have to be an apostle. You don't have to convert a bunch of people. Oh, that's the Grand Commission. Okay, great. It's the Grand Commission. Jesus knows what's in your heart and what you can and cannot do. He also knows that you will grow the longer you're a Christian. Right now, Christianity is beset by a bunch of baby Christians. And it doesn't matter whether you're 2 months old, 2 years old, 20 years old, or 80 years old. If your faith is that shallow and that brittle that you're afraid people are going to find out what your faith is, you're a baby Christian. You're still taking baby steps. You need to nut up, okay? And I'm sure Jesus would say this too. Son, daughter, you need to man up. You need to get out and you need to show the world my message. Don't just go out there and preach it. Go out there and teach it. Show the world what being a Christian is about. Show the world the importance of liberty. God gave us our liberty. He gave us certain inalienable rights. Okay? And the reason God did that is because He created us in His image. We're not perfect reflections of His image, but we can learn. But in order to learn, we have to choose to learn. And the more we hide what we really are and cower in fear from those who might call us nasty names like racist, sexist, bigot, homophobes, it's the same reason I call them GQBLTs, because it's the only way I can keep up with all the letters.
I still think of a sandwich.
These people, even the GQBLTs, want to know where the Christians are because the Christians are tolerant. Listen, the GQBLTs out there, they know what would happen under a Muslim regime. They would die very quickly because Islam calls for the death penalty for gays. And especially for lesbians because Islam considers women property. So the feminists who are in the know want the Christians to come back. Okay? So you got the gays who want the Christians to come back. You have feminists who want the Christians to come back. You want to talk about being a bunch of racists, let's talk about Hinduism and their caste system. You're born into a particular caste, you stay there. Okay? It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, true, but for some reason all the lower castes tend to be darker brown than the higher castes. Funny how that works out, isn't it?
I still love how I still see people now that sit there and say that they're not racist, but yet they'll make fun of somebody who's Mexican. Or some, and I was like, that's still racism.
True story. True story, Chris. Now, I'm going to tell this story before I wrap here. Okay, true story. This came out just the other day. The state of Mississippi, the state Senate there, they have 14 black senators in the Mississippi State Senate. Okay? all of them Democrats. They all walked out at one time because the Republicans, who are the majority in the Mississippi State Senate, had proposed a Senate bill that explicitly stated that no race is superior or inferior to another race. Every black senator, all 14 of them, walked out on that, and because they didn't think. They knew it was Republicans passing it, and they knew it said something about race, so they all walked out. The two white Democrats in the state Senate, Mississippi State Senate, ironically enough, token voters, cast their token votes against it, but it still passed. The message all those Democrat senators gave, okay, they didn't come out and say it, but they didn't have to, but they made it loud and clear: blacks are inferior to whites. That actually happened in 2022, man. Now, we just did an episode of Geeking Out where I said 22 has just been kicking us in the nuts every time we turn around. That's just the latest in a long litany of stuff over the past year. But that's something that's really happening because we are thinking we are smarter than that. We're smarter than Christ. We're smarter than God. We are God.
I am hoping that if things get real, that we will have the courage and people will have the courage to actually stand up, whether if it's the government or whatever. Like,
I'm going to wrap this. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up here real quick, and I'm going to give you guys a bit of hope, a ray of hope, because Chris, we've been doing these podcasts now for 3 years. Okay, between Geeking Out, the Spike and Chris Show, the Chore of Duty, we've been doing these off and on for 3 years. I've made a lot of predictions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many do my predictions typically come true?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, and I'm not saying that just to
give me hope.
I'm not saying that just to settle my ego, okay, or to stroke my own ego, or toot my own horn, or whatever. I'm seeing this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make this prediction now.
Okay.
We are seeing a lot of division right now. Okay, and America has gone through divisions even greater than this before. There's talk now about separation. Talk now about balkanization. Talk now about a second civil war. No. That's not what's going to happen. Okay.
I believe that it won't, but I keep hearing it, and part of me is kind of like, oh, please don't. Please let them.
There's a very small vocal minority who honestly think the world revolves around them, and those are the people who make those claims. Okay, those are the people who say there's going to be a second civil war. Those are the people who can say the blue states need to separate from the red states, and the red states need to separate from the blue states. So no. Divided we fall. Okay, the state motto for the Commonwealth of Kentucky is "United we stand." Everybody knows that part. They always ignore "divided we fall." The United States cannot stand, especially if you split along red and blue, because you have blue along the edges and red all through the middle. How in the world does the blue survive that? Okay? You're not going to see a second civil war. You're not going to see a separation of the states. You're not going to see that because like I said, I'm not the only one who's calling for Christianity to shake off its torpor and come back. We are now seeing secularists calling for them to come back because they know they need tolerance in order for liberty to exist. And without liberty, the humanists are usually the first ones to take it in the shorts. Okay? Because humanist governments are out there and they always go after their critics. And boy, humanists love to complain. So there's that. The secularists want Christians to come back because they need some kind of standards. Because there are people pooping in the street out in San Francisco. That's what happens when you get secular government. You get people who don't want to be held to standards, so they're not held to standards. Because secularists think, no, people are inherently good. They wouldn't go out and poop in the streets. Yeah, they would, because they're basically bad. So there are secularists who are hoping that Christians will come back and establish the standards, say, that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. We're going to hold you to account if you do. Even if you are found to be incompetent, well then, okay, we'll find you incompetent. We'll get you off the street so you're not going around feeling compelled to poop in the streets because you're mentally ill. There has to be something wrong with you for doing that. A secularist can't say that. And finally, the atheists are wanting the Christians to come back because the atheists cannot admit there is a God because that would remove them from being the center of their own little universe. If you have a bunch of Christians who far outnumber the atheists come back and take, basically like grown-ups, take control of everything again, then the atheists can sit there and they can throw all the little tantrums they want to their heart's content, but they know that ultimately the entire system will not collapse because they're listening to them. Okay? For that matter, again, Christians are extremely tolerant. They tolerate gays, they tolerate lesbians and bisexuals. There are a bunch of Christians like me who consider transgenders to be a form of mental illness, and we can have that discussion for another time. But it's a discussion that needs to be had. Okay? Gays, lesbians, and bis, no, there is nowhere else on the planet, even in the Western powers, where they can get away with as much stuff as they do here. Okay? Here they can actually go suck face on an eHarmony ad and just basically make people who disagree with that lifestyle throw up in their mouths, but that's okay because we're tolerant, right? The point is, what I'm going to predict is that 2022 is going to see a sea change. Okay? It's not just going to be about the congressional elections in 2022. By the end of 2022, you will see Congress completely change. Okay? And it's not just going to be a political thing. You are going to see Democrats standing up against Nancy Pelosi. You're already seeing it in the Senate. You see Chuck Schumer's in charge of the Democrats in the Senate. You've got Kristen Sinema of New Mexico, and you've got Joe Manchin of West Virginia. They're both longtime Democrats. They're both senators. They're the two senators who have been standing up to the Democrat machine and saying, no, this is not right. After 2022, you're going to see far more Joe Manchins and Kristen Sinemas in the Democrat Party than you see Chuck Schumer's and Nancy Pelosi's. The ones who sold them out to the socialists or whoever is pushing their agenda. You're going to see the same thing in Republicans. You're going to see a lot more liberal Republicans openly saying, this is not right. I don't want to tell you how to live, but if you keep living the way you are, you're hurting other people, and we can't let that stand. So you're going to see a reapplication of standards because Christians are finally beginning to wake up. Remember, like I said when we started, I've been on the outside, now I'm on the inside. I've seen the outside, and I still watch the outside, and there are people wondering, where the hell did the Christians go? Now I'm on the inside, and the Christians are saying, okay, we need to get back into the game. I'm beginning to see it in small churches. I'm beginning to see it in large churches. The emphasis is going away from the mega churches, the Joel Osteens, the Bishop T.D. Jakes. The big religious organizations now are the Franklin Grahams and his Samaritan's Purse. It's Joyce Meyer and the Hands of Hope. It's a hopeful theology. It's a theology focused not on material things, but on salvation, and that there's a better tomorrow, and we can do it if we get together and fight for it. So I'm asking, the title of this episode of the Chore of Duty is, where the hell did the Christians go? There was actually an answer, because I hate rhetorical questions. The non-rhetorical answer, they're here, they're back, and you're about to see over the next 2 to 5 years, you're about to see what these Christians can really do. So that's the bugle firing off right there. Gabriel's sounding off. We need to answer the call. So don't fret yet, Chris. Things will get better. We just have to get in there, and me from a church, you from without. We're going to have to get in there, and we're going to have to show there's a better way. And we're going to have to do that by the way we live, not just what we say. So, until next time, y'all, if there's a next time, because with the way the weather's been acting here lately, I don't know. Until next time, that's Chris.
Hello.
Well,
Or
goodbye.
goodbye.
I'm Spike. We'll see you next time on the Chore of Duty. Take care, y'all.